In this video, we'll be cutting holes into our glass dome, then fixing up subsequent normal issues with the shrink wrap modifier. We'll then finish up by adding gaskets between the pipes and holes, again leaning on the shrink wrap modifier to form a seal. Okay, time to cut some holes into the glass dome here. Now this is easier said than done. So to start with, let's give ourselves a little bit more room by going up to the top right here and dragging our window so it overlaps our sketch, as we don't really need that for this. And then to avoid ourselves deviating too much from the original shape, let's just duplicate that with Shift-D, right-click to drop. And to make it look a little different, let's go over to our object options here, scroll down, and display as textured. Now, if we select our wire version and hit F2, we can name it Dome Original and then hide it. Now, with our newly created one, let's jump into that and add a little bit more geometry to work with. So I'm just going to add a few loop cuts, one along the center of our lower pipe, one in between the two, and one underneath. Now, that still isn't quite enough geometry. So if we move over to our modifiers here, decrease our viewport level down to 1, and then apply it. Oop, we need to jump out into object mode, and then apply it. Jump back into edit mode. Now we have a lot more geometry to work with. Now we can select these 4 polys here, right click, go to loop tools, and circle. And do the same underneath, loop tools, circle. Now selecting the polys of both circles, we can hit I to inset it, and then X to delete the faces. And then in poly select mode, we can select this loop with Alt left click and grab it, move it down, grab this one, move it up, grab them both, and with individual origins selected, scale them roughly into place. We'll be creating a kind of gasket later on, so don't worry about it being totally airtight for now. Now this is all well and good, but it's looking very polygonal, so let's add our subsurface modifier back on. Moving it to the top first and giving it 2 levels and have a look around. Okay, that's looking good, but as I'm sure you can see, particularly if I switch over to a less forgiving matte cap, we have some weird pinching going on there because for as good as the loop tool make circle is, it doesn't really know to follow the contours of this curve. But thankfully we can project onto our original dome as we still have it as a mesh. So to do so, let's add modifier shrink wrap. Let's move it above our solidify, and under wrap method, we'll do project. We want to project on the positive. Yep, that looks good. And our target is our dome original. And as you can see, that has drastically improved the normal situation. Still a little bit of something there, but that's very manageable, and we can have a look at that when putting together materials. Okay, let's jump out of isolation mode and go back to our normal material matte cap. Jump into wireframe mode and just move our original dome as well as our figure here, as we don't really need that anymore, into a new collection called Hide. Okay, and then if we navigate over here to our selection, and we can see our hide collection here, and we can just uncheck that. Okay, let's create the connecting gaskets. We can kind of take advantage of what we already have here by Shift and D, and just dropping it over here, making sure we do still have face project and align target to rotation. Hit G, snap it on the front here, rotate Z 180, and hit G and move it down. And then move it into place. Looks good. And then we can do Alt D, move that up, and G, Z twice to move it out along its normals. Do the same with this one, just so it doesn't quite intersect. Looks good. Now these two share the same mesh, if we can confirm by going into the mesh options here and seeing the number 2. So what we can do is if we jump into isolation mode and edit mode, then select these bottom polygons here, go over to our mesh options, vertex groups, add a new vertex group, let's call it stick, and assign a weight to it. Then if we jump out of isolation mode and back into our modifiers, Let's just toggle those up. We can add a shrink wrap, move it to the very top, project, positive, target, our original dome. Okay, it's already looking pretty good, but it's a little bit distorted for my liking. So let's jump over to our shrink wrap modifier and just restrict it to our Z axis, which is the local axis of our gasket here. Okay, that flattens everything down, but not to worry, that's why we created our vertex group. So if we just select that, and we have our nice shape. Now we can select the other one, and shift select the one we just edited, Control L, copy modifiers. Okay, now let's switch our dome back to wire. And I think that'll look kind of cool from the inside as well. And with that done, let's go up and save our work and continue on with the next video.